To understand how we breathe, we first have to separate two distinct biological processes: ventilation, which is the physical movement of air in and out of the body, and gas exchange, the chemical diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide across a membrane. Neither of those should be confused with cellular respiration. That is the chemical reaction occurring within your cells, breaking down glucose to release energy. This creates a significant biological hurdle. Human lungs contain zero skeletal muscle. They are made entirely of passive, sponge-like tissue. Without any ability to pull or contract on their own, these tissues must move liters of air every minute to maintain the steep concentration gradients required to keep us alive. The human thorax operates as a mechanical pressure-volume engine to solve this problem. To understand biological respiration, we must first master the physics of pressure gradients. When you inhale, air travels past the larynx, the area containing your vocal cords, and moves straight down into the trachea. Notice this cross-section of the trachea. Negative air pressure during a breath pulls inward. To prevent collapsing, it is reinforced by rigid C-shaped cartilage rings. From this windpipe, the airway branches into two main bronchi, directing air into the lungs. These bronchi then subdivide into a vast network of increasingly narrow, microscopic tubes known as bronchioles. This extreme branching terminates at the alveoli, millions of tiny air sacs. This architecture packs a massive internal surface area into the confined volume of the chest cavity. Because this massive surface area is delicate, the incoming air must be filtered. The entire respiratory tract is lined with goblet cells that continuously produce a thin layer of mucus. This sticky layer physically traps incoming pathogens and particulate matter before they can reach the deep lung tissue. Working alongside these goblet cells are ciliated epithelial cells. These microscopic hairs constantly beat in unison, sweeping the contaminated mucus upward, away from the lungs and toward the throat to be swallowed and destroyed. The respiratory tract acts as a defended, structurally reinforced conduit, engineered to deliver filtered air to the exchange surfaces. That air only moves because of the structural boundaries of the thoracic cavity, the rib cage, the external and internal intercostal muscles situated between the ribs, and a flat muscular sheet beneath the lungs called the diaphragm. When you breathe in, the external intercostal muscles contract, while the internal intercostals relax. This mechanical action pulls the entire rib cage upward and outward. Simultaneously, the dome-shaped diaphragm contracts, pulling itself downward into a flattened sheet. Together, these two movements increase the total volume of the thorax. The physics here are absolute. As the volume of a sealed container increases, the internal pressure drops. The air pressure inside the lungs falls below the surrounding atmospheric pressure, drawing air inward. Exhalation relies on antagonistic muscle pairs reversing this sequence. External intercostals relax, while internal intercostals contract, pulling the ribcage downward and inward. The diaphragm relaxes, springing back into its dome shape. Thoracic volume decreases, internal pressure rises, and air is pushed out. Mastering the sequence of these antagonistic muscle contractions is critical. Our 24/7 study coach can drill you on these specific pressure-volume mechanics whenever you need a refresher. Ventilation is driven entirely by manipulating the physical volume of a sealed container to exploit the basic laws of gas pressure. While mechanics handle the macroscopic airflow, the true work occurs microscopically at the interface between a single alveolus and its surrounding capillary bed. This table highlights the chemical composition of inspired versus expired air. Oxygen drops from 21% on the way in to 16% on the way out, while carbon dioxide spikes from 0.04% to 4%. You can also observe a distinct increase in water vapor content in the air you exhale. How does such a distinct chemical shift occur in the few seconds a breath sits in your lungs? First, millions of tiny alveoli provide an aggressively large total surface area, maximizing the spatial opportunity for gases to diffuse across the cell membranes. Second, the alveolar walls are only 1 cell thick. This minimizes the physical distance oxygen and carbon dioxide must travel. Third, a continuous blood supply constantly brings fresh deoxygenated blood in and carries oxygenated blood away. Paired with ventilation cycling fresh air into the lungs, the body maintains steep, unbroken concentration gradients on both sides of the membrane. As for the added moisture, Ambient body heat causes the water lining the warm alveolar surface to evaporate into the exiting air. The chemical shift in our breath is the result of passive diffusion occurring across highly specialized biological architecture. The respiratory system must adapt instantly when the body transitions into vigorous physical activity. As you exercise, muscle cells must respire faster to release energy. This elevated metabolic rate produces a surge of carbon dioxide waste into the bloodstream. The primary trigger driving your respiration rate is not a lack of oxygen, but the accumulation of this carbon dioxide. Specialized chemoreceptors in the brain detect this rising carbon dioxide concentration as blood circulates through the central nervous system. In response, the brain fires rapid nerve impulses to the external intercostal muscles and the diaphragm. Ventilation rate and depth increase. The body aggressively vents excess carbon dioxide while simultaneously pulling in more oxygen to meet the cell's heightened demands. The respiratory system operates as a chemically triggered waste management loop that automatically scales to handle metabolic stress. Zooming out, we can observe the entire system working in perfect unison during moments of peak physical exertion. The macroscopic musculoskeletal system acts as a mechanical pump, ceaselessly manipulating internal volume and pressure. This physical pumping is the reason microscopic chemical diffusion at the alveoli can continue uninterrupted. Passive lung tissue relies on this musculoskeletal engine to sustain the body's blood chemistry, breath by breath. Visit www.studybuddy.tech to take a free diagnostic test that will allow students to identify their weak areas and become the basis for the creation of a customized study plan for exam success.